When sitting down and deciding what I wanted to do for a Halloween video, it was clear that I wanted to do another Iceberg video. I get it, they might be a little bit tacky, but I enjoy them a lot and they're fun as hell to make. But there's two problems that comes to it. The first problem, I kind of feel bad taking other people's icebergs and making a video on it. I get that there's no legal problem with it, it's just morality. It feels weird since I've already done it once. And two, even if I had no moral obligations to not do that, there's not really any good Tekken Icebergs outside of the one that I made. Or they were just made by another content creator that was made specifically so they could make content off of it. And I'm not going to cannibalize somebody else's content. So I thought, why don't I just make my own? In this video, I plan to take you guys through a very interesting style of iceberg. I've got 4 layers instead of the normal, well, I'm not even going to say normal, they get crazy with how many layers there are. I got 4 layers and each one of them is going to have 3 very interesting facts, tidbits, or things that I had no idea existed about Tekken that I found literally just scouring the wiki for hours. These have been handpicked by me, and I guess are more or less supposed to get more into the mood as we go into it, but don't expect this to be anything spookier. This is definitely more of a lighter-hearted style of iceberg. There really isn't anything, as much as I would love to find something, there really isn't anything that's like creepypasta-esque for Tekken, which I think would have been hilarious to cover and really fun. I already talked for a little bit, I don't think I need to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get into the first tier. Layer 1. Clear skies. Tekken Command Battle was a mobile spin-off game for the Tekken series that was released in Japan in 2001. The game was playable through a Japanese company's internet service called I don't know, and was pretty much a typing-based game that featured only 3 commands, attack, parry, and throw, where the players would pretty much have to battle each other by trying to type their command quicker than the rival player to do more damage than them. I couldn't find any actual gameplay on the website, and because I don't have a Japanese phone service, there's no way that I could play this from what I've been able to see. I do have screenshots that have been thrown up here as well to show that there was no English audience for this whatsoever and was strictly just some mobile game for a company. I'd imagine this was probably just when Tekken was blowing up when it came out, and some Japanese company just wanted to hop on it and be like, hey, give us a free game for it. Back when mobile games people thought were going to be the big thing in early 2000s. But it's very interesting because it also uses, as you probably have been able to guess, the Tekken Tag Tournament 1 sprites. So it was made around the same time and just kind of took images from Tekken Tag 1 and was just like, oh, how fast can you type? It was really interesting and even had its own ranking matchmaking system where you could communicate with other players directly or acquaintances by specifying a phone number. I don't know if it had a Dan system and everything, but it did at least have a phone number system where you could play with other people, which is definitely really cool. Yeah, so an interesting little game that probably unfortunately has been lost to time, but if you guys do know of any emulation service that is offering this, let me know because I'd love to at least check this out because I think it's a piece of history that might be lost from what I've been able to see so far. Death by Degrees was pretty much just a Tekken Force beat-em-up game that featured Nina Williams, and came out for the PS2 in January 27, 2005 in Japan, and later released in NA in February 8th the same year, and April 15th of the same year as well in EU. It was, as you can see, pretty much just a Tekken Force style Tekken beat-em-up with a bunch of different game modes. You had a campaign, an Anna mode, which is pretty much the same thing as just regular. It's just a reskin of Nina, and you collect some cards, challenge modes, and all kinds of different stuff. The plot follows Nina as she's obviously a world-renowned assassin being hired by the CIA and an M16 team force to join a team that's trying to infiltrate Heihachi's organization. It's a pretty interesting game, and you can actually get a physical copy of the game for about $30 to $40 online, and you can emulate it for free, and I'm not going to say where, even though emulation is not a crime and illegal. I'm not going to get my video taken down. But, I mean, it's not hard to find if you really want to play the game, which I think is really cool. I think the fact that emulation is around and the fact that the physical copy is still cheap is great because it allows people to experience, even though it might not be anything great, it still is genuinely a great part of Tekken history and kind of holds a really unique point, being the only Tekken game to have one character focus as the spin-off game. There is no other spin-off games that focus specifically on a character in their plotline. None. Just this one. So the fact that Nina got one and was a whole spy thriller beat 'em up is kind of cool. The Tekken motion picture, outside of having a absolutely horrible cover art photo, I mean seriously, genuinely the very first reason why I chose this to be on the top of the list is because this cover art is horrible. I mean, atrocious. This is hilarious. I saw this and laughed my ass off. But when I started reading into it and doing some research, this is actually really cool. The Tekken motion picture is a 1998 non-canon 2-part OVA series based on, obviously, Tekken. The story is an amalgamation of the first 2 games in the series, focusing on the first King of the Iron Fist tournament, while giving a prominent role to Jun Kazama, who was introduced in Tekken 2. The 2 OVA episodes were edited into one film and released on VHS and DVD in North America by ADV Films. However, I'm pretty sure it's just some horrible, nasty dub version, and nobody wants that. The cool thing is, though, is you can find a English subbed version on YouTube right now by just searching Tekken motion picture. Right now, it's still up, and you can watch the whole thing, which I think is so cool, and one of the reasons why I wanted to introduce this into the iceberg, because this is something you guys can actively go watch. I don't want to spoil anything. I gave enough, I feel like, to kind of interest you, and I've shown some screenshots of, you know, characters and stuff like that from the film. I've watched a little bit of it, but I've planned to sit down and watch all of it here sometime soon, probably both by the time this video had gone up, but while I'm researching it, I don't have the time to. But from what I've watched, it genuinely is a really, really cool piece of Tekken history, and super entertaining if you literally just like the characters. At the very end of the day, it is just a cool, old Japanese anime that's about Tekken, and I don't know what else you'd want when it comes to a Tekken anime. Layer 2. Tip of the iceberg. Paul's girlfriend is in reference to the Tekken 4 ending, where, as it says, Paul does have a girlfriend. Paul's girlfriend is blonde, has a brown fur coat on, and is a purple top with purple heels. This is supposed to represent the success of Paul, who had obviously in this ending won the tournament and can get with elegant women. After a little bit, he's out with the women, and then it shows us back to him with his motorcycles, and he seems like he's alone. I feel like this is more or less to say that even though Paul won and has this luxurious lifestyle where he can get women and all of these other things, none of that is truly Paul and what he really likes, and what he really likes is beating the hell out of people and working on his motorcycle. So at the end of the day, you can't fault him for wanting to like his hobbies. A man's gotta like his hobbies, you know? Giant praying mantis is in reference to Tekken 3. It was a bug that had caused the joints of characters to end up moving backwards, assumingly at the elbow to make them look like a praying mantis. Apparently, not only was this just a bug, but there had actually been implementation ideas, and they wanted to implement a character as a joke, similar to the salmon character. However, it was discarded for a lack of development time, and not because they didn't like the idea at the end of the day. The insect blink data can still technically be found in the Tekken 3 arcade board, and according to the wiki, there is a video on YouTube, but I cannot find for the life of me any sort of video. I find people going into the memory, I see people looking at glitches, but I do not see any footage of these elbows bending backwards, nor do I see any footage of the name Mantis being mentioned. That doesn't mean it's not true, it absolutely is, and I've seen multiple people mention it, and this has been confirmed by Harada, but you're not seeing any pictures on the screen because there's not anything I can show you. I wouldn't know where to look in the Tekken 3 code even if I could, and there'd be no way for me to be able to replicate it even if I could find anything, so I'd just be finding lines of code to send pictures of. Still though, it's a very interesting fact, and the fact that they were working on this character that came from a bug was pretty interesting. Tekken Advance is a spin-off game from the Tekken series for the Game Boy, and shares similar aspects to Tekken 3 and Tag Tournament. Technically, this was the first Tekken game to appear on the Nintendo platform and came out in 2001. The gameplay, as you can see, is very bare bones, but actually kind of fun. The really cool thing about this too is the website is actually still up and you can go through it. It's really cool. The screenshots you're seeing right now are actual legitimate screenshots from the website. I don't think there's any videos from what I could find from scouring this dated website, but there are videos plenty and you can see that now. I'm pretty sure you can emulate this, which is super, super cool. And the fact that they were even able to get this running like it is on the Game Boy is super, super cool. It just really goes to show how some of the older Tekkens were pretty simple, but really, really, really advanced in their own ways. Layer 3, Below the Waters. Now listen, I know I've already had a couple of card-related entries in this video already, but I'm a nerd and I like trading card games. So when I found out that there is a trading card game for Tekken that came out in September of 2005, I had to add this. Epic Battle Trading Cards are an out-of-print collectible card game produced by Score Entertainment and released, like I said, in September of 2005. The gameplay apparently attempted to imitate a traditional fighting game experience through cards, similar to Pokemon cards. It features multiple different characters from different franchises, including Tekken, Street Fighter, and Mortal Kombat. There was a set of 172 cards based off of Tekken 5 characters that was released in 2006 as well. A lot of these cards were super cool, and I genuinely like the art a lot for these. I think the one thing that's really sad about this entry, though, is all of the entries for this trading card game were called Premiere or Round 1s, and there was never ever a Round 2 because they just never printed more. The only one that technically got 2 prints is Mortal Kombat, having a Premiere and a Round 1. There's a couple of card games that I've seen try to replicate this very similar style, and I genuinely believe that this could have been an amazing card game if it really just kind of picked up the steam, or even was released nowadays. Fight Lab's going to be the one that most people are probably going to know about in this category, as it's a game mode from Tekken Tag Tournament 2. This is pretty much the Arcade Quest equivalent to Tag 2 and focused around Combat and Violet trying to build the character, and act more as kind of a tutorial for newcomers. There's quite a bit of length to it though, as every single chapter has 2 stages and then a boss fight, so 3 in total, and there being 5 chapters. That's 15 different fights, which is pretty cool. The reason as to why I talk about this one is because I genuinely thought that this was an awesome tutorial and should have been brought back. Every single chapter focuses on a different specific thing about Tekken, whether it be movement and lib control for stage 1, stage 2 trying to follow directions as fast as possible, and it kind of moves on, so on and so forth. It provided you challenges to try and hone your dexterity as a newer player that wasn't just throwing yourself into the game, and especially with a game like Tekken Tag Tournament 2, having a tutorial that could hone your reflexes and get you ready for the shitstorm that you were about to put yourself in was pretty cool. Tekken 2 Fat Characters is in reference to, well, Fat Characters, a cheat code that you get in Tekken 2. Before I start this off and explain, if you hold the select button while you are selecting a character in the character select, oh wow, lots of select, your character will just, well, get fatter. And the funny thing about this is, this stacks. So anytime you'd go back to reselect a character in arcade mode, if you hit select again, the character would just get fatter and fatter. I think that's really obviously stupid, but also kind of funny. And I didn't even know that Tekken 2 had genuine, like, cheat codes. There's an entire section on GameSpot that has pretty much all the cheat codes, which I think is cool. And I wanted to add this entry because 1, I thought it was funny, and 2, I miss cheat codes. Layer 4, Deep Waters. Tekken Card Challenge is hold your phone, it's not a card game, don't worry. It's a turn-based fighting game released in Japan for the Wonder Swan. Yeah, tell me if you've heard of that one before. It features characters from Tekken 3, plus an exclusive character named Crow, which I'm pretty sure is just a Tekken Force character, just given a name. Tekken Card Challenge utilizes a system similar to Nintendo's Pokemon games, where 2 opponents will fight at the same time, with various cards for different maneuvers and 100 HP total for damage accumulation. A player begins their hands with 4 cards, so it's a digital card game, I gotcha there, and then just drawing more as the duel proceeds. It's definitely not what you'd expect, and I haven't shown any pictures yet because I wanted you to just kind of like listen, and then this is what the game looks like. So not what I was expecting, definitely, but I mean, it's got a good, decent bit of characters. I don't know what the meaning of characters are, but I'm unsure if the cards themselves that you collect and draw are different per character, or if they're all kind of the same accumulation pool. I'd imagine they are, but then it gets into the question of what's different between the characters other than just aesthetics, which a game that released in 1999 for a console I've never heard of very well could have absolutely no differences, and it's just a small pool of cards that you're pulling from. Still, very interesting and something that I'd imagine not a lot of people know about. WILDCARD is an irregular character only appearing in the arcade version of Tekken 1. This character is a manifestation of the random select used to determine CPU matches when the arcade machine is not in use. For the console version, WILDCARD would have been used in conjunction with a random select slot on the character select screen and would have referred to any randomly selected character in the game, but was cut from the final release. However, a really interesting thing to note is WILDCARD was able to be found in the console release, but is significantly different different than what I'm about to tell you. The arcade version of WILDCARD can only be selected through hacking of an emulation or the arcade version. It uses Kazuya's model, but specifically Yoshimitsu's moveset. WILDCARD doesn't have any sort of nameplates and does not speak, and the only voice clip inside of the game of WILDCARD is the announcer speaking his name. One thing that I want to mention that I think is really interesting, and I'll post a screenshot of this entire message history here and then read out what I feel like is the most interesting, and obviously I'll be linking this as well in the description if you want to read this all yourself. Changing just a couple of lines from binary, switching Yoshimitsu's slot to this WILDCARD slot is exactly how they were able to unlock it on the PS1 version. This is really interesting because according to the official wiki, this has never actually been proven, even though 3 years ago is the date of this. So 3 years ago, we did figure it out. The wiki hasn't updated, but I think it is really cool to think. But I think it's super cool to think that there is a weird bugged version of a character in an arcade version that seemingly never existed in the console releases, and we were able to find it so many years later after the game is released. I wish there was a little more that I could talk about this one because I really like this idea, and I thought that it was super cool. I had to do a little bit of digging to already find any of this information, let alone what even WILDCARD was, because I didn't even know about it. So if you have any other information on WILDCARD or any other really cool situations similar like this in the older Tekkens, let me know down below. And finally, for the very last entry, I wanted to generally talk about how aliens have been consistently seen throughout pretty much a lot of the Tekken entries. Aliens technically appear in Tekken Tag 2, Tekken 8, Tekken 6's Scenario Campaign, and Tekken 5. They also appear in Paul's Tekken 5 ending. There are also costumes of Alien in Tekken Tag 2, and they explicitly appear in crates in the Tekken 6 Scenario Campaign. I find this really interesting because it's not something that's talked about much and doesn't give us any lore-specific reason as to why aliens are in the Tekken universe, but they're referenced a lot. I mean, hell, here's an artwork from Street Fighter X Tekken that is literally Paul punching an alien. Like, why would they make a random art piece for a crossover game that's a promotional piece of him punching an alien? I'd really love to see some more examples of aliens in the game, so if you guys have any other secret ones that weren't listed here, let me know below, because I might be missing some. I don't think I am, but I might be. And with that last entry, this wraps up the Tekken Iceberg Explained Part 2. I had a lot of fun making this one, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. It's a lot shorter than my other one, and there's a lot less entries, but I thought it would be a lot better going out of my way to try and find really interesting entries to talk about instead of just using somebody else's. And it's also really hard because this game doesn't have a lot of like pop culture, like Iceberg style tiers. Nobody's really like making those, which is fine. I don't think they need to be made like a bunch. But a lot of the things in Tekken is just kind of set in stone. It's kind of hard to find like some Easter eggs, but I feel like I covered a handful of really interesting topics, and if there's any other ones that you guys would like to see maybe next year, or anything that you would like, or anything you find really interesting that I didn't mention, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. But that'll be it from me, guys. Thank you so much, and happy Halloween, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.